take a moment and take all of that loveliness in. Um, it's like a hug, and it's also like a all at the same time. Um, First, thank you everybody for coming out and indulging me. I called this woman and said, I want to talk to you and Aunjanue about this beautiful piece of art that I had no idea was going to um, resonate so deeply for me. And I have so many things I want to ask, and I'm not going to have time to ask all of the things, but I think I want to just jump in with how you found that grief is connectivity, that is a space that when you go to the depths of grief that Isabel went to, had to experience, um, and you have a specific scene that resonated for me that Isabel seemed to understand that how we're all connected through that. And I'm just so curious because I did not read the book. And I'm almost glad that I didn't because I didn't have a certain expectation for a certain thing or a certain part to be in the book. That how your own personal journey with grief, how did that
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
bring
you.
you to this space?
Thank you. And thank you for being here. We're so excited. We are so excited to have you here. Um, it's just very special to have you here because you are an actor and a director and formidable at both. To be in conversation with you about this piece that means so much to both of us. So I just really appreciate your presence. You know, the scene in the book, so the book is maybe about 30% of the movie. The majority of what you've seen are stories that Isabel Wilkerson told me when I went to her and said, I'm going to make a movie about you writing the book. But you writing the book isn't in the book. So you will have to tell me those stories, and she did. And the stories were deeply personal stories that were steeped in the grief and the loss of her husband, her best friend who was her cousin, her mother, all in a 16-month span before she began to write the book. And so the way in was the scene in the book that is also in the movie, one of the few ones, when she speaks to the plumber. And in the book, it goes a little longer than what I have here. But in the book, she is perceptive enough to know this is the thing that we share. Because when you have lost someone, and if you are in this room and you're lucky enough never to have, and some people are still in that space, but the majority of us have lost someone that has changed the molecular structure of who we are. When you've gone through that, and you are talking with someone at a feeling level about that, who they are, what they do, their identity falls away. And you're just a human being who is in a state of talking about that change, that molecular change. And that scene was a scene it's not my favorite scene in the movie. I struggled with the scene in the book. And so that's why it was important for me to try to figure it out here. But there was something that she got to in it that became my guide and my anchor to all of the writing. Oh, it's the grief. So if I can have everyone go into the film through that sense of loss, what it feels like to lose, then you're on a feeling level and you can understand the Holocaust, the manual scavengers, all of the pieces of collective loss as humanity, what we lose when we treat each other the way that we do. And those two trains might run together. So that's what I try and experiment with here.
Aunjanue, just my God, Aunjanue. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I just stunning. Thank you. thank you for that. I told you, you make me so proud to be a thespian. Oh my God. But speaking about grief, having to hold that um, that weight for so long. I mean, how long were you guys shooting?
37 days.
37 days. And did you guys have any
37 days in 3 countries.
in three countries?
3 continents, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you were in all of them.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm assuming that you were not shooting. You were shooting out of sequence, so to be able to hold that and to play the different stages of grief, and when I keep using the or keep saying grief, because what I've learned in my experience with grief is that, and what you two did so beautifully, that there is a gift that comes out of it. And that's hard for a lot of people to understand unless they actually experience grief on that level. So, how were you able to hold that and play the different levels of that? Because it had to be called on at different times, at different places, out of order. How are you able to do that and be here looking amazing like that was nothing? Because I know how much of a something that was.
Well, first I want to say thank you, Regina. Um, a little backstory. I have never been friends with this woman on screen ever. Like we are always fighting on camera. So this is new. This is new and I love it. And I'm so grateful. I would say that the the gift is the writing of the film, the writing of Ms. Wilkerson's book. And then the other gift that I had, which made it incredibly easy, is my coworkers, Niecy Nash, John Bernthal, Ms. Yancey, who played my mother. They are all brilliant, and with John and Ms. Yancey, just loving, loving, wonderful people. So I developed this sense memory, even though it might have been things might have been played out of order. There's that scene that I have where I am saying goodbye to Marion. And it is after I've had those scenes with her where we're looking at the photographs. So I had a very intimate relationship with Niecy, shooting with her. So I was able to use the sense memory of that. And then, I carry my own grief. It is a gift and a curse, but it made my experience of the film, it made it an expression of something that I probably would be put in a straitjacket, if I really could walk around with that. I can't. Society won't allow that, so I am thankfully an actor and could express it in this space.
As many sets as we've been on that don't particularly feel safe, being in a safe space, I'm sure, played a big part of being able to express it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, and this might sound counterintuitive, but I'm not that interested in safety because I feel like in a way that I'm armed by this character that I'm playing, and this character is not experiencing safety, so I don't need that. I don't need that. I throw me to the wolves because that's what Miss Wilkerson went through. She was, and I'm sure still in that place because it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. So I didn't need that. What I was allowed and permitted is a director who I believe really trusted me, and trusted me all over the world. And that was priceless.
So you talk about the trust that Ava had for you, and I'm assuming that it went both ways. What were the conversations? You know, oh, you know, how about this? I give you a scene, and you could tell me what the conversation was before that particular
We
scene.
could tell them if we fought over it or not.
Yeah. So the scene, let's see which one. Oh goodness, so many of them. Let's take the leaves.
You know, the leaves were a place where I felt so fortunate that she trusted me, because really, there's no way you could have known what was going on. It didn't look like that when we were doing it in real life. There were some fake leaves. We were an indie production. So the leaves she's laying in, I mean, you walked in the room, you had to have been like, what's happening? You know, leaves from like the 99-cent store mixed with real leaves from outside. Okay. And she just came in so focused. And sometimes I wonder, what does the actor see when they enter into the space? Like, I try to make it as real for them, but I couldn't make that real because the falling leaves in the space were added later, right? And so I don't know what she saw. I don't know what you were experiencing externally, but internally, she walks in the door, and anywhere she goes, she's there. She's walking in, she's there. There's nothing you have to do. All of the kind of theatrics and mechanics that I do to help other folk get into a space, which there's nothing wrong with it, this one doesn't need it. She's coming in and she's ready. And so literally, she could have been anywhere, and that same connection would have happened, because she's always connected to something that goes way beyond anything I can do. And that is an actor of superior talent and skill, and of diligence and of rigor, because that doesn't just come. You know what I mean? You have to prepare. The preparedness is there. So in that one, that is one where we didn't talk much. I was like, can you lay down in these fake leaves? And then, you know, and knew the scene, and she was just ready to be right there. And Miss Yancey, Emily Yancey, who played her mother, John Bernthal, who played her husband, also were
We're all in them leaves.
all in the fake leaves. But everyone was so kind, and no one was, I would have been like, what is this? What are we doing? What is it again? And sometimes there are actors who really need to know everything that's happening. But Aunjanue was very, very trusting in that moment. Thank you. Because I couldn't have explained it. It was in my head. That's how I felt when my father passed. I felt like I was in a dark hole, and I just wanted leaves to bury me. Like I didn't need to be here anymore. And so how do you explain it? I couldn't explain it. I knew I could make it if I would have people who would just cooperate and please lay down and just do it for me, and you did. So.
Well, I mean, I think that is a mark of your filmmaking, that you're a visual filmmaker. And I knew that, and I trusted that, and I said, this is where we're going to tell this story visually. Yeah, and you didn't have any problem with me because I was leaning into that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yes.
Okay, so was there a scene where there was conversation? I'm always so interested in this because I'm interested from how another actor, you know, because as an actor, when you're speaking with your director, you're not always thinking about all the other characters' journey to get to the end of the story. You're in the moment with your character and your character's journey. And so I'm always curious to hear, you know, what that conversation is like from another actor's perspective, and also from a director, balancing all of the different personalities.
That's a real actor/director question to even know how to ask that. Madame?
Well, we had some solid conversations.
I would say solid conversation.
Solid conversations.
I don't think really fights, though.
Yeah, no.
Not
I mean,
fights.
we listen. This is a brilliant woman, you know, and here's the thing: Isabel Wilkerson an incredibly brilliant woman, and we were trying to communicate ideas, a vision, concepts that have not really been explored in a real way in this country. Talking about interchanging, saying that you can't interchange race and caste is a really new idea. How do you do that on screen? Right? So a lot of our conversations would be about that. And I am from Mississippi, and so some of what Ms. Wilkerson poses in the book is that caste is not necessarily hatred, and I bump up against that. And that's the great thing about this film, is that it invites that. It invites that. So she and Ava and I we one Sunday afternoon, we talked about that, and she wasn't defensive about it. She let me say what I had to say. She let me say that in Macomb, Mississippi, when I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with, I know that what I'm dealing with is not abstract. I know that I am dealing with hatred. I'm very well aware of that. And so that was one of those conversations.
Yeah, I think this collaboration with you was my most intellectually rigorous actor collaboration, right? Because we would have real conversations about, you know, theory and history and culture and art and all of the things, like, just a dynamic and brilliant mind here. And so when we were talking, I mean, she's going to throw out references. I was like, let me look up words. Let me be in my thesaurus. Have you seen this piece of art? No, ma'am, I have not. Let me, you know what I mean? And, it's references, it's philosophy, it's art, it's geography, it's a whirlwind of ideas that come from Aunjanue that just added new brushstrokes to anything that I'd written or conceived. And so I just welcomed it. I just was, overwhelmed by it in the best way, and just wanted it to just, you know, drench all over me. And so no, they weren't fights, but also I'd written a thing, you know what I mean? And any writers in the room, but I wrote this. But what about this thing that I want to do, right? And so it was sometimes, having to open up and say, no, this makes it better, and that changes it, but maybe that's okay, or let's just try it, or I tried it and I don't like it, but thank you for, offering it. And so it was a lot of that exchange, and I'd never quite had that before. I've had beautiful actor collaborations, but this one was the most kind of like, I need to study because I'm about to have a conversation with Aunjanue. She wants to talk. She says she wants to talk. Let me be prepared, and that's real. When I get a text from her saying, I'd like to talk to you tomorrow.
Because Aunjanue doesn't talk, but when
Okay.
she wants to talk,
We're going to talk.
we're going to talk.
Yes. Yes.
Don't believe it.
They're saying we have time for 2 more.
Oh, no.
Yes. Pick 'em-
darn,
pick it wisely,
darn,
Regina.
darn. Okay, 2 more. One, specifically for Ava, and one specifically
No,
for
don't
Aunjanue.
spit them up. Just,
No, well, because you guys will be able to kind of
Okay.
Elaborate on either. Okay, the scene with the young boy in the swimming. Yes, so often in storytelling, when we are receiving as an audience stories about cruelty, usually we see it through a violent lens. And that wasn't violent, but it hurt. It cut even deeper, probably. And I don't know if that was in the book, if that was one of the stories that she told, but what a brilliant choice. And question is why? And for both of you, just performing it and the care that you had to have in the moment, because it's just you sharing this moment with the young, what is his name?
Albright.
Albright. I was going to say Alfred. And it was so tender and sad, but then hopeful. And how you guys found that in such a cruel moment was breathtaking and just kind of gobsmacking, you know. So why, how is the question.
Thank you. That's beautifully described. Well, the sequence is actually, it's one of the major, most memorable stories in the book. And I think it's memorable because it has a character in it. This boy, Albright, that you conjure in your head as you're reading it. And it's one of her examples about, in the book, she writes about the different pillars of caste. And that example is in a portion that talks about purity versus pollution. And that there are actually human beings that can make spaces unpure for certain human beings. A ridiculous concept, but real. And she tells the story as an example of that in the lifetimes of people who walk among us, right? And so it's a story that when you read it in the book, you're like, whoa. And as I'm looking for characters to adapt the book, of course, I have to do the Albright piece. But the way that that's constructed, Aunjanue is actually with two characters in that space that I think actually create this sense of overwhelming empathy for everyone. She's with Albright, and she only says a few words to him, "You're going to be okay," with the match cut in on the hand to his face, the same match cut in the hand of her mother's face that touched her face during the leave sequence. Some people notice that, some people don't, but you have an emotional response to it, I think. But then she also has this conversation that feels very verite and very kind of investigative with the white man who was Albright's friend, as he tells the story and narrates through her interview what happened. And so those two working together, so Aunjanue is managing, it was the same day. We shot it on the same day. One sequence that was very planned, down to the match cut, and I'm doing my whole director thing and the faces, and can you move your face a little bit more? Yes. Had you laying down again. And and so that was very meticulous, to the other scene, which was unplanned that day. So do you want to tell them about that? So the man who she's speaking with was not that was not written. So that was supposed to be narrated by the Isabel Wilkerson character, was supposed to say those words. This is what happened to Albright. But there was a man on set that day who was a background actor. He was supposed to be just one of the guys in the background. And he said to me as I was walking by, because I like to create a set where anyone could talk to anyone. Some directors just want to be, I want to talk to everybody. So the background actor said to me, his name is Alan, said to me, "I don't know what's happening," because background actors, as you know, don't get sides. Okay, they don't get the script and they don't know what's happening, which is unfortunate. He's like, "I don't know what's going on with this scene, but it reminds me of something. I think, when I saw you all rehearse that, what's happening in the scene?" So I told him what's happening, and he said, "This happened to me." And I said, "What do you mean this happened to you?" He told me a story similar of him observing a young friend of his when he was young go through this, and he watched it and he couldn't quite figure it out, and he was starting to get emotional. And I said, "Do you think that if I give you the sides for this scene, could you tell the story to someone with the same emotion you're telling me this story?" He was like, "I'll try." So I gave him the sides. He read them. Miss Ellis was on her way to her trailer, I believe. Very small trailer. Indy. Thank you. And I said, "Can you just come back? This is another thing of the trust. Can you just come back and sit here and talk to this man?" "What are we doing?" Just talk to him and just ask him some questions." Okay. What do you want me? Just interview him. Interview him about his experience in the pool. He's the man at the pool. And she starts to interview him. And everything you saw there, all the way up to when she says, "How old were you?" And I remember being behind the camera, just standing right behind the camera because we're all very close. And I remember thinking, he's not going to remember the age from the script. And he said, 9. I was 9 years old. And it was the perfect age. Later I looked, the age wasn't in the script. He had experienced that at 9 years old, which was the exact same age that Albright was, 9 years old. It was such a symmetrical, beautiful day.
It's magic.
It was a magic day. How was it? Because he actually got to you in the scene. It was a real moment.
I thought he was really experienced that with Albright. That's what I thought. I didn't realize that until we were done.
Yeah.
That he.
You thought I brought the real man in.
Yeah, I did. No, I did.
It was
Most
Ava.
people think.
Yes.
People think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It was a magic day.
it was magic.
Yeah. Little of that.
I agree with you. We working on that.
Well, I mean, that's what we all, I hope, can work on together. You know, we can't do all this heavy lifting, just this wonderful cast and team of filmmakers can't do it alone. If it moved you the way it moved me, please, tell people January 19th to go see this and feel this. It's not a film that's about race. It's a film that's about connectivity. And I believe that this is a film that'll be studied in anthropology classes for years and years to come. But I'm going to ask one more question.
That's the final
Just,
question.
Aunjanue, Isabel is truly brilliant, and it's such a nuanced performance, such a nuanced person, and you use your body so much as an instrument in this, and most people would look at it and not catch that, but I'm looking at your hands, and I'm looking at the things that you're doing with your body throughout this film, and it would be so easy for an actor to get caught in the space of thinking. And as an audience, and maybe just because I'm an actor, I can see when actors are thinking. And Isabel is a thinker. So balancing that line of playing this woman who is just everything is cerebral with her, and it not look like an actor thinking. How did you do that? That's just it blew me away. And the second time of watching the film is when I really noticed just your body as an instrument even more. Like, by the way, where you put the camera when your husband died, and where that camera was. So often we are a fly on the wall as an audience, but when we have those moments in film where we drop down into the person, where you had the camera and you tripping over the bed to getting to him, and your choice of how you held him, it was just so beautiful, so deliberate and messy at the same time. And I was just in awe. So back to, I'm sorry, I digress. Back to the original question. How did you balance the playing Isabel the thinker and not looking like an actor thinking? They're difficult. Anybody that's not an actor may not understand how difficult that is, but it is something to hold.
Well, Ava said something really brilliant in our talk, a talk we had a couple of weeks ago about performing scholarship, of performing being a scholar. And I think we were talking about in doing interviews and that kind of thing, that we didn't want to be posing like we were Isabel Wilkerson like scholars. I know I'm not, and I don't want to speak for you, but yeah, right. But I had to perform being a scholar on that film, And one of the things was very important to me was that I started a couple things. I was always reading all the time throughout the filming. Always. I made sure I got on the prop department's nerves, because I said I need a notebook, a book. I need pens, I need paper, I need to constantly feel like I have my accessories, the stuff I need to do what I do. This woman is a constant thinker. So that was that outside work that I did. The other thing was Ava always wants to have an experience, you to have an experience that is immediate and the first time you've ever had it. So a lot of what you saw me experience on screen, I was experiencing it for the first time ever. You know, I arrived in India on my birthday. I've never been to India in my life. I've never been to Southeast Asia in my life. I arrived in India on my birthday. If you saw fear in my face when I was walking across that intersection, that's because that's because that is I don't think enough can be said. I know you're asking a question about my process, but I don't think enough can be said about what makes her the singular filmmaker that she is. Yes, you can clap. Please clap. A lot, and please no one get offended by this, but a lot is made about, and this is kind of a meta thing, a lot is made about the minds of white male filmmakers, about the scenes that they can create. This is what this woman did. She took a whole crew of people to India and put us in the intersection of New Delhi and put a camera there and said, okay, go. That's brave, that's boldness, and that's cinematic, that's film, that's magic, and she lives in that space. And I applaud you, and I just, you are a visionary, and I want you to know that. I want you to know that. I just want to say one more thing about being a thinker. My first conversation that I had with Ava was that she wanted to do a film that was about the interior life of a woman, of a black woman, and to see how to dramatize that. Because we think.
We do.
Women think. We think. We got ideas. And we're scholars, and we're professors, and we're journalists. And how do you dramatize that? And when she presented that as something that she wanted to explore, as someone who is a thinker, I'm not Isabel Wilkerson, but I am a book nerd. I read all the time. That was so exciting to me. You see that in European films all the time, like an actor like Isabelle Huppert, you know what I mean? You see them do that kind of work all the time, and that was so exciting to me to do that.
It was so exciting and a blessing for us to watch. It truly was, truly is.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank you for this conversation. Thank you for saying things I've never heard you say. That's thrilling. That's exciting. And just to thank you all for being here.